Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. I have to start by sharing with you that Tommy and I are kind of ships passing in the night. He was in charter schools and then went to work for the district. I started out in the district the first 30 years of my career. Now I'm working in charter schools. So wherever we're working, it's all about kids. Doesn't matter if you're a charter school or within the traditional public school district, you'll find that Tommy and I will talk about similar things, but getting there differently. It's such a pleasure to be here this morning, but I have to tell you a couple of other things. During one of the empowerment efforts that I'll talk about, and I'll be talking about two, the Learn reform effort in Los Angeles that was actually 20 years ago now, but my job was to get it implemented, and Alliance College Ready Public Schools, which I'm currently leading. Back 20 years ago, we also took a pilgrimage, several pilgrimages to Edmonton, Canada, so it was a pleasure coming in to see Mike Trubisky this morning. Learned a lot from them, as I'm sure you will as well. Also, to my great surprise, ran into Ed Burke. Ed, stand up, I'm going to put you on the spot. Ed Burke was with United Teachers Los Angeles, and at the time we were implementing these reforms, was also working directly with one of the Los Angeles Unified School District school board members. So when I walked in today, Ed, what are you doing here? He lives here now, so you have a great resource right here in your own community. We decided at our table that, thank you, that the TED Talk was a TED teaser about what we're going to talk about a little bit later on. So I'll share with you some highlights of the two empowerment efforts that I'll be talking about in the keynote presentation tomorrow. I want to thank you very much for inviting me. We so enjoyed having the 27 delegates visit Alliance schools and learn about what we're doing, and we're eager to learn about where you are on your journey. I want you to know I did read all of the survey results, and I can kind of see where you are. It sounded as though you could be any city or district in the world grappling with how to move decision-making, empowerment, which is the theme of your conference, to the folks who are closest to children and closest to schools. So my hope is that the information that I'll share with you, both the lessons that we learned, what worked, what didn't, what continues, will be helpful to you as you decide what's going to work best for you. I'm going to try to manage the clicker as well, which I'm seeing for the first time. So, the big question, are we there yet? We think, and I personally think, that every effort that you embark on, there's always some lasting change. I love your image of the pond and the pool and the ripple effect. Even when it's no longer the primary focus, a particular initiative, there's still lasting change with the people who are actually responsible for implementing it and making it happen. So I so agree with your comments about grassroots. Even when systems change, even when leaders change, the people who actually started the work, got it going, those are the people who actually keep the work going. Are we there yet in Los Angeles, even with Alliance schools? I have to say we're still learning lessons every single day from people like you and from people across the country. I ran into an educator from Honolulu in South Carolina a couple of weeks ago, so I guess we're all traveling around to find out what it is that we can do to continue our journey to make sure that the right people and all of the people who impact children's lives are involved, but those in particular closest to working with children. Some changes are sustained, some are not as much as we would like. Most of the change that I see being sustained is at the school level, but often the change that is needed to support school level work at the system level, that's where we see change. So in Los Angeles, we've had multiple efforts. We kind of call them auditions for education reform, constantly trying to get at how can we improve learning for kids, how can we make sure that everyone has a stake in what it is they're trying to achieve. We've had magnet schools. We've had the Children Can No Longer Wait in Los Angeles. These two efforts were initiated by the district. We've had shared decision-making, school-based management. These two efforts were largely launched by our bargaining unit and really part of the negotiated contracts. And then we had LEARN, Los Angeles Education Alliance for Restructuring Now, in case you're wondering what it stood for. This was the first major external effort in Los Angeles Unified School District, coming off a work stoppage, coming off a lot of strife in the district, coming out of people saying, really, LA Unified should just be broken up into smaller districts. We also had LAMP, LA Metropolitan Project, which is a major funding effort from the Annenberg Challenge Grant, where we had $500 million to help us improve our schools. That led to charter schools. Actually, charter schools started about the same time that we initiated the Learn Reform effort. And then you heard Tommy talk about pilot schools. We also have public school choice, which is a current initiative, at least at the moment, in Los Angeles. We're not sure how long that was going to last. And that's one of Tommy's efforts. So in Los Angeles, there's always this notion of, for the folks who directly get involved, they're passionate about making the work happen. And then there are folks who say, well, this too shall pass. I'm going to wait and see what actually happens. I can't emphasize enough the importance of every single person who cares about their school, cares about kids, rolling up their sleeves, investing of themselves personally, and figuring out what it is you want to do and how you're going to get there. Not being one of the this too shall pass. I think some of the things that we learned in Los Angeles is that often there's doubt. People assume that just because we're LA, things are going to change with the next superintendent. So there's wait and see, and then the folks who say, told you so, it was going to change. Across all the efforts that I listed, there are some common elements across every single one of them. And those things are, these common things, decentralization, a word that you've heard many times this morning, moving decisions closest to the school site. And I have to say, it's not just about moving decisions to the school site. It's moving decisions from federal to state, from state to district, from district to school, and from principal to stakeholder. So I was so pleased this morning to see that we have a parent here opening and leading this conference. Parents, obviously, one of the crucial stakeholder groups in any kind of grassroots involvement that we take on in any kind of reform effort. The grassroots part of it is, and I think Tommy mentioned this as well, you can't mandate empowerment. You can allow it to happen, but every single stakeholder group in an individual school has to be involved to figure out what's going to work best for that school. Common across all these efforts, higher standards for all. They're not just about who gets to decide, it's who gets to decide so that our children are learning better, so that we have greater success in preparing our students through their education. I think most important in the work in empowerment and decentralization, it's not about finding one answer that fits all. If everybody in here decided that there's going to be one way to empower your schools, that would be a miracle. I suspect that there are 50 schools in this room, you're going to find 50 different unique ways that individual schools will want to take charge of their schools, be innovative and creative in the way that you serve schools. With LEARN, one of the major, most massive efforts in Los Angeles Unified School District, again, 20 years ago, started about the same time that charter schools were just coming into California. It was the talk of the town. You would have thought that we had gone to Mars and we're on our way back again. It was in the media every single day. It went from LA Times, this is our best hope for improving schools. The LEARN program is going to make that difference. It's the only way that we're going to improve what happens for our children, all the way to an entire area of the district officially announcing their endorsement of LEARN. The reason it was so important, this LA Times article about the San Fernando Valley, was that was a group that at one time wanted to pull out of Los Angeles. We want to be a separate school district because we're not happy with what's happening in Los Angeles. All the way to finally, when the plan was developed, major effort, huge announcement, it was circus-like, to have everyone celebrate the fact that we were finally ready and we're going to launch this effort. Fast forward from 1992 to 2000, the two leading groups, the LEARN group and the Los Angeles Metropolitan Project, banded together to form a new initiative, charter schools. So what did we learn from Los Angeles Education Alliance for Restructuring Now? And I want you to think back to what I said about what a huge groundswell it was. Even your convening here reminds me of the way that we got started with LEARN. When the planning first started, there was this guy who came to town, Mike Roos, who was a very popular elected official and assemblyman. He had been selected as the get-it-done guy who was going to be the chairman of this external group called LEARN. They pulled all the stakeholders together from across the city, everyone, business leaders, educators, parents, anyone who cared about Los Angeles Unified School District, into these planning groups that literally worked for 2 years deciding what they wanted the core values to be, what they thought was most important to focus on to transform Los Angeles schools. There was such passion throughout the city that it was palpable. I think the thing that was most different about this reform effort was it was triggered externally in terms of the leadership, but it also involved the teachers union, the principals union, working collaboratively with each other and with the district to try to create this new initiative for the district that would change the way we do business. On the day that the Board of Education voted to approve the initiative, literally 85,000 people had signed this petition demanding that the board approve it. There had been 600 community groups working on this design, and the Board of Education, which was unusual at the time, approved it unanimously, 7-0 vote. So what happened? That big, huge groundswell of passion and investment of people's time and everyone wanting their voice to be heard about what they thought should change. When it came down to it, the external group, involving all these business leaders, elected officials, people who at one time thought just break up the district, got it approved, and it was time to implement it. So the things I want to share more with you when we talk about this more in depth is how was it implemented? How did it go from plan and passion and vision and investment to actually making it happen? I think it's crucial to learn what worked with this initiative, because there are many things that did work that changed the culture of schools as a district, though not under the name of LEARN now, still actually exist. And those are the things that happen at the grassroots level in each individual school. What were the challenges? And there were many. Moving from plan to implementation is where the rubber hits the road. It can't just be talk, it can't just be passion. You actually have to figure out how you're going to implement and allow these changes to move forward. And finally, with all this groundswell, why did it end? LEARN was being implemented from about 1992, from the time the plan was finally developed and approved by the board, to really, I think it kind of wound down about 2000. By then, there were over 500 schools that had chosen to be a part of the initiative, which was almost the entire district, and then it ended. So that's the LEARN story. Now, fast forward to 2004, Alliance College Ready Public Schools. My job with LEARN was to head up what was called at the time the LEARN Implementation Office. My job was to be the liaison between the external partners who cared deeply about the district, advocated for district change, and the district, the folks actually responsible for making the change. In 2003, I was recruited to start the LEARN organization from scratch by the same people, the same external parties who had launched LEARN. Those were our board members. So we started our first high school in 2004. Over the past 10 years, we're celebrating our 10th year anniversary this year. We have grown from 1 high school to 26 schools. We serve about 11,000 students in Los Angeles. Right now, we're the largest single charter management organization operating schools in Los Angeles. We have a network of high-performing secondary schools. We only operate schools in grades 6 through 12. So what's the Alliance about? Why did I leave? First of all, I did not leave LA Unified because I was dissatisfied. I loved my job as local district superintendent because almost all the schools were Learn schools, and all those schools believed in their ability to run their schools and wanted to continue their autonomy, wanted to continue being accountable for following their mission, their vision. So with Learn, we had a new mission. Our mission was to open and operate small, high-performing secondary schools only in low-income communities in California because that's where the need was greatest. And we only chose communities where historically students were underperforming. Our mission was to constantly demonstrate achievement growth for our students, which is the primary driver of our mission, and to graduate every single student ready for success in college. Not sure I'm keeping up with my slides here. So this is our mission in Los Angeles. We have core values that we believe in. We're right across the street from a school that may be failing, enrolling those same students in that community, making a difference because of the way we choose to run our schools. Our core values: high expectations for all students, small personalized learning environments. We've increased instructional time. We believe in highly effective educators, and we believe in parents as partners. What I want to talk more deeply about is how we go about making each of these core values become a reality in the way that we improve student achievement. Our most recent initiative is blended learning. And this is an initiative that came literally from two of our principals who wanted to try something different, even though we had been successful academically with our schools. Because we're a network of independent charter schools, schools can change what they initially set out to do. I would say our implementation of blended learning has been the greatest change since we became an organization where all of our learning is online learning. Every student has a device to manage their learning. We started with just opening every new school after 2 schools piloted blended learning to expanding the change to schools as they were ready to implement. So what I want to talk about later on when we have more time is how the Alliance is implementing this change at each individual school. We don't have one way of implementing blended learning, again, because our schools are empowered. We have a portfolio of different strategies that each school chooses based on the way they feel is best for them to move forward with this shift. Why is it so important? It's not just about the technology, but it's because we believe it helps us better prepare our students for success in college. So we'll talk later about what we mean by station rotation. We'll talk about a model that just got funded as a new wave model for that we've changed the way we operate our high schools. We have what we call a flex a la carte model that each school decides. And then we're working now on a next generation view to really change the way we think about what happens in schools and outside of schools that contributes to student learning. So those are the 2 tales of empowerment that I'm looking forward to talking with you more in depth about. What happened, how they get started, what worked, what didn't, and what's happening with them now. Thank you so much for inviting me.